everyone, and welcome to Unit 8, Module 40. We are talking about social motivation and affiliation needs. Here are your learning objectives, and here's your vocab. So the benefits to belonging. So remember we talked about in an earlier module Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we talked about that sense of love and belonging being an important component to our self-esteem and kind of pushing us forward to self-actualization. So social bonds go back through evolutionary terms. So evolutionary psychologists look at the sense of belonging as something that was important for both survival and reproduction of the species. So adults who were social survived. They talked to each other. They learned what to avoid in order to live. They also helped each other out when they needed help. And those adults that were social and formed attachments were also more likely to form attachments with their children, and then thus keeping them alive, and so on and so forth. And here we are, and now we are extremely social beings. This is in our DNA. When we look at research on happiness, we find that more than money, if someone has enough money for food and water and that stuff, then more than money, satisfying relationships are more strongly correlated with happiness. Our best moments, according to research, are related to other people, to relationships. The start of a relationship, whether it be a friendship, a new baby, and someone new joining the family, falling in love, any of those things. And the worst moments in our life tend to be the end of a relationship, whether that's through death or a falling out or whatever. These are very important to our degree of happiness. Let's talk about a couple of studies. So the first one surveyed Americans and South Koreans who were college students, and they found that their most important moments of the week, they rated them on various things. Like, how did those most important moments make you feel about X, Y, and Z? So self-esteem was one of the highest, and this is one's overall sense of value and worth. And it was a gauge of how accepted they felt by others in that moment. So our self-esteem is kind of related to our sense of belonging. If we feel in that moment a strong sense of belonging, or something happened to us and we can share that with others, it's beneficial to our self-esteem. So much of our behavior is based on that need to belong. So people spend a lot of money trying to belong, trying to conform. If you look at your clothes and you look at brand names, or the way you style your hair, or the way the choice in your glasses, the choice in your shoes, the choice in a lot of things that we do, exercising or specific hobbies that we might have, all of these things are related to our need to belong. Social isolation causes a lot of pain, and we avoid this at all costs, really. It's related to our mental decline and also just overall ill health. Immigrants and refugees have particular stress on them for that, and over that fear of isolation. And this can lead to depression if they're not able to find a community of people to interact with. And actually, this has shaped U.S. immigration policies, where they started to, a while now, maybe like 20 years ago now, encourage chain migration. And chain migration is if one family from the Sudan comes over and lives in one town, then it's easier for someone else from Sudan to live in that same town. So it's harder for the first family when there's no one else from where they're from. But the second and third family, it makes it easier and easier. So the more people in an area that are from that area is easier. So the pain of being shut out is real. So being shut out or isolated or any sort of social exclusion is known as ostracism. And this could be being exiled, being imprisoned, being just shut out socially, being dropped from the group chat, dropped from your friends, etc. Solitary confinement. All of these are forms of ostracism. And there's been studies on this to show that heavy brain activity occurs when you are ostracized in the same regions as where we experience physical pain. The same parts of our brain light up if it's social pain as it is physical pain. So again, just a reminder that pain is in the brain and it comes in many forms. We tend to think of pain as being physical, but this is very much real pain. And they also found in this study that pain reliever like acetaminophen, or you might be familiar with the brand name Tylenol, this actually helps alleviate social pain, not just physical pain. So the way that the brain works with this pain is so similar to actual physical pain. You can't tell the difference in the brain as to which one it is. Another study, they had one group who was told that people didn't want to have them in the group, and also that you're very likely to be alone later on in life, like have no friends. And another group who was randomly assigned was told that you have a lot of people who want to work with you, and you're going to have rewarding relationships throughout your life. So the people who were rejected did worse on aptitude tests, like underachieved. They were more aggressive. They had less empathy towards other people around them, kind of like doing behaviors that they didn't really care if they were rude or pissed people off or whatever. And the research concluded that, look, if this is just one study, and in this one little study, these intelligent and otherwise well-adjusted people can turn this quickly and kind of have all of these things decline. Imagine what a life of social isolation or ostracism can do to someone. That causes deep, deep damage. And we really need to look at that as a society and see what we are doing to people. And another example that they point out in the textbook is that when you look at cases of school violence, there is a consistent theme of social ostracism. So connecting and social networking, texting and email, as you know, have displaced phone calls, and even email is declining in place of texting or other kinds of like messaging systems. Friends are basically always present. 95% of college Americans were using social media in 2011. So this makes it really hard to kind of not sign up for social media because of that fear of missing out. We know that lonely people spend more time online, and also people who spend more time online are less likely to make face-to-face connections with people around them. So as a society, we are less likely now to connect with our next door neighbors than we are to connect with people on social media. And so this can be hurtful in that, like, if someone's sick or whatever, like, you don't have that same kind of like neighborhood, like help each other out mentality. But social media also has positive effects. So if you kind of feel isolated in, let's say, or your identity, you feel kind of like you're the only one in your area, you can go online and find other people who are like-minded as you or identify the same way you do, and that can really have a beneficial effect. So does electronic communication stimulate healthy disclosure? So they find that online communication is less inhibited, meaning people say more what they want to say. obviously that can be good. People are more vulnerable, more willing to share intimate things, but it can also be bad. People sharing hate things or creating hate groups, right? So there's good and bad with this. But overall, face-to-face interactions promote stronger happiness than anything else on social media. So does social media profiles posts reflect people's actual personalities? So the research says yes, your profile does tend to reflect not your ideal personality, but your actual personality. And narcissism is also a factor with social media. So the people who spend more time on social media tend to reflect, when they take a narcissism measurement, they tend to score higher on that. So again, good and bad with these things. So our takeaways: we are social beings, and it is in our DNA to connect with other people. Relationships more than money indicate happiness. Social isolation triggers the same brain regions as physical pain. And like things like Tylenol have that relieving effect. Social media causes feelings of social isolation, but it can also connect people in ways that they couldn't before. And if you are on it too long, it does promote narcissistic traits, and people get very caught up in the likes and the comments and who's commenting, who's not, etc. So that sums up Module 40, and I